Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate, heading down to the ACC for a very intriguing matchup. The North Carolina Tar Heels heading on the road to play Dabo Swinney in the Clemson Tigers. And why I think this matchup is so interesting is on paper, their records. You're saying these two teams maybe not as good as we thought heading into the year. I'd argue that both of these two teams are still some of the best teams you see in the ACC. We've talked about it. The Clemson Tigers have outgained their opponents in every single loss that they've had on the season. This record not nearly showing how good of a Clemson team this is. And then North Carolina. Like, we know, we've seen flashes of what this team can be, and then you just see them not really have that killer instinct and be able to put teams away in the second half. But at the end of the day, you're looking at an elite North Carolina offense going up against an elite Clemson defense. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, again, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support you guys have shown the boys for all of these game breakdowns truly does mean a lot. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and more importantly, throw the picks and predictions in the comment section. Dill, going to give you the T-box here. North Carolina truther, how are we feeling about this matchup?
I think honestly these two are much closer to like the top of the ACC and Florida State than I think again they've both had some horrible losses. I honestly, there's no reason UNC shouldn't be undefeated. I mean, they've played well enough in almost every game, or I would say every game to win, but they are making those crucial, horrible mistakes that UNC, frankly, for the past 3 or 4 years, it feels like has been making kind of consistently. And Clemson is, I mean, it's so obvious what's going on, like to fumble that often in the red zone and have those absolute backbreaker plays. They're happening too much, and obviously they've started to limit them, and their success has gone way up. But
yeah, wild. When you don't turn the ball over when you're on the goal line multiple times a game, you start winning football games. And that's what Clemson's done the last couple of weeks. Let's get into the kind of the main event of this game, and that is this North Carolina offense. Drake Maye, Marion Hampton, Devontae Walker, like a loaded North Carolina offense going up against a Clemson defense that, again, the record, people want to write off this Clemson team. This Clemson defense is one of the best units in the country. You look at some of the metrics, 4.4 yards per play. That's 8th in the country. You look at the secondary, a 54% completion percentage given up. That's 8th in the country. Only 5.4 yards per pass attempt. That's number 3. Juggernauts going up against juggernauts. They'll get into this North Carolina offense versus Clemson defense.
I mean, the one thing I think UNC is doing, and we thought they'd be able to do it coming in, is they're running the football at an extremely high level. And this offensive line in the run game, the pass game, we'll get into later and talk about some of their pass pro struggles. But this offensive line's moving guys, and Hampton he's awesome. So you do have a run game where, again, teams really do need to still respect Drake Maye. They're always going to need to. In Hampton and that offensive line are using that to really be effective.
That's what makes this North Carolina offense so good. I mean, it's averaging 38 points per game. That's 12th in the country. Not necessarily a surprise, but what kind of sets this offense apart and not enough people paying attention to it. Yeah, Drake Maye, he's going to light you up in the air. But what Marion Hampton is doing, running the football, I mean, this dude is a freight train. He gets downhill. He's extremely physical, has the long speed to hit the explosive plays. Dill, I think you hit the nail on the head. This North Carolina team, it can run the football. They have the wide receivers. They obviously have the quarterback. But I think the biggest mismatch you're looking at, North Carolina's pass pro against a Clemson front seven that can get after it.
And that's, like, again, if UNC is going to be the team they need to be, it does need to start with Drake Maye. He's got to be the guy. And there are too many times where he's not given his shot on, like, obvious passing downs. They're really, really struggling. It feels like unless he can go out and make something happen with his feet, like when they're able to work play action and use that run game to kind of slow teams down up front, it's still working. And you're getting guys wide open. Devontae Walker's playing really well. But, God, when they get into that obvious passing down situation, they need to find some way to play better in pass protection because this Clemson defensive line is a problem.
That's the biggest story is North Carolina avoiding winning on first and second down and avoiding being in those third and long situations. Because you look at this Clemson front seven, I'm gonna cook a little bit here on this Clemson front seven, loaded with NFL talent, and not only like guys who will be playing in the NFL next year, Tyler Davis, Rook O, but also guys who will be playing in the NFL in a couple of years, Peter Woods, TJ Parker. I think Capehart's been playing really well, Xavier Thomas. it's rare to see a defensive line be as deep as Clemson is. And I think that's what makes this group special. Like, you have elite guys like Ruco, Tyler Davis, I think Peter Woods, quite frankly, playing at an elite level, but you also are so deep and you're just cycling guys in and out who can get after the passer. You look at how you want to slow down this North Carolina offense, it is going to be getting after the passer in those third and long situations. And Dell, you look at the secondary, I mean, just as good as the front seven, pretty much.
Yeah, and you're looking at a team that, again, they can get pressure in a lot of different ways. Their linebackers are as good as I've seen of two blitzers. And again, another thing UNC struggled with, you saw it against Miami where they gave up some big pressures on blitzes. It's just Clemson has too many ways to hurt them. And you're right to talk. This secondary, again, a unit that was much maligned last year, got way better towards the end of the year. But they have some big-time players. And I want to shout out two freshmen who I think have made a huge difference in Avian Terrell and Cleo Barnes, because those two are playing big-time football, especially last week. I mean, Cleo Barnes is that prototypical elite nickel who does everything. He tackles really well. He gets his hands on footballs, and he can play man coverage.
I mean, they're loaded. This Clemson defense has so much NFL talent, whether it's in the front seven, whether it's in the back end, whether it's guys who are second, third, fourth year guys, or whether it's guys who are first years. It's going to be good on good. And that's what's got to excite you the most as a college football fan. Flipping sides here, not so good on good. It's like the weaker parts of both of these teams. I want to start with this Clemson offense that I think the run game has helped this Clemson offense, right? Like, taking a little pressure off Cade Klubnik, getting Phil Maffa, Will Shipley going. It helped against Georgia Tech. It certainly helped against Notre Dame. Phil Maffa, an absolute house. What I want to see, I think Clemson will be able to get the run game going. Like, we've seen them, I think, again, very similar to North Carolina. They can run block. Pass protection, there's some question marks. But in terms of run blocking, like, they can get it done up front. Can you get the run game going? And when you do have that run game going, can you parlay it into hitting explosive plays in the passing attack? Because you still look at it. Sorry.
That's been something UNC's really struggled with on defense is fitting holes and run. I mean, if you watch that Georgia Tech game, there are too many plays where these linebackers, like, you see 2-in-1 gap. And again, it gets like when we question Gene Chizik, there's some of those things. It's like, man, these guys are too good to play like this. They're too good to have a safety and a linebacker in one gap, or two linebackers in one gap, and they're overrunning plays and they're not accounting for the quarterback. There's just like a litany of issues that you kind of see going on that, again, you have an athletic guy in Cade Klubnik with an offensive line that's playing well. It does feel like they can kind of run the ball a little bit in the way that Georgia Tech did, or even Virginia at times was able to do. So that's what I'm looking for UNC, is just to like clean up those mental errors almost. And it's going to be tough because, again, I do think the way Clemson's offensive line has picked their game up, that they're turning into a bit of a different offense.
I'll just say it right now, and I don't normally call out like coaches and call for heads of coaches. Gene Chizik, I just don't know how you still have a job. And I mean, like, I know that sounds harsh, but this dude has so much. This North Carolina defense has talent. Like, it's not like they haven't recruited guys. Miles Murphy, Desmond Evans, Kamarian Rucker. These are all ACC caliber guys. Power Echols, Cedric Gray at the linebacker spot. Like, it's a good defense that, you said it best, just does not seem well coached. They make big mistakes. They have busts in coverage. I mean, Gene Chizik got to be on the hot seat here. Going back to what I was saying with this Clemson offense, though, and kind of a key for Clemson that I think, if you can get the run game going, can you suck in those backers and safeties and hit some explosive plays in the passing attack? Because you look at this Clemson offense, their one bugaboo is the explosive passing game is just not there. And when you have to just like rely on being efficient for 12 to 15 plays and working the football down the field, it's hard to do that at the college level. Cade Klubnik is averaging 6 yards per pass attempt. That is 117th in the country. You brought Garrett Riley in for a reason. Like, let's get a little bit more juice. And I think it starts with the run game, getting the run game going, working some play action. And I think that's the recipe, but you got to see them try to hit a little bit more explosives in the passing attack. Again, against the North Carolina defense that is gettable in the back end.
And I also want to see them make plays with their feet a little more. Like, if you catch a ball in space in the flat, like, who's going to go make play? I mean, Bo Collins, give him credit. It looks like he's starting to play like that type of way where he's doing that type of thing. When Bo Williams is in, he's playing that way. Obviously, he struggled with injuries. But that's like the type of plays they need to make more of. Their wide receivers at the end of the day, I think, just need to make some plays for Cade Klubnik.
We've had that conversation. Like this wide receiver, and it's like the frustrating part about Dabo, the reluctance to go into the portal. I know it's a hypothetical, but like, what would this Clemson offense look like if they went out and got a Keon Coleman or Devontae Walker? You know what I mean? If they went out and got an elite wide receiver to put in this Clemson offense, I think it's cost them games in certain spots because this wide receiver room, as good as this Clemson team is at some spots, has gaping holes. And how do you fill those holes? The transfer portal. And I think Dabo Swinney's reluctance to do so, I think, has hurt Clemson in a massive way. Interested to see if he kind of fixes that. Back to the game here. Still, North Carolina on the road, 6.5-point dogs against Clemson. Who you riding with?
I think I like Clemson. I think the way Clemson is running the football right now, the way that UNC is not playing good enough against the run, I think it'll be the difference. And again, I just don't see this team running the ball like they have been on Clemson, this UNC team. And Clemson's defense is so good in the front seven. And I just don't think they can get in a game where it's a track meet because their offensive line, I just don't see playing a good enough pass protection when those obvious passing downs hit.
We normally agree on picks, right? We talk football pretty much like 24/7 together. We see the game kind of in a similar light. I'm going to fight you here, and I'm going to ride with North Carolina. You ask me what offense I trust more to put up points right now. It's the North Carolina Tar Heels. I get they have question marks on the defensive side of the ball, but even against Georgia Tech, like Clemson, I know they put up some points, but they relied on a lot of turnovers. Like they didn't have like a ton of explosive offense. Cade Klubnik, again, 6.5 yards per pass attempt against Georgia Tech. They just haven't had the explosive plays. So you're asking me, what offense do I trust more to put up some points? I'm going to ride with Drake Maye and the North Carolina Tar Heels, at least with the 6.5 points, right? I mean, a touchdown, I think this was going to be close. And I'm kind of interested to see what unit wins. This North Carolina offense, this Clemson defense, it's going to be a really good game between two teams that I think people have a misconception on how good these teams are. These teams are good. Going to be a good football game. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.